Now what we're going to talk about, remember I talked about learning to live with it, right? And but if they just told me how. So what we're going to talk about now are some of the coping skills. This is the basic coping skills. That doesn't mean if you get these, that's all you need to know. The interesting thing about what I've been doing for the last 31 years is I continue to learn. I continue to learn things that we need to know, things that I need to know to maintain my wellness. And so that's why we keep developing new tools. How do we help myself? How do we help other people to maintain that wellness, to stay actively engaged in the whole process of moving from that? It's like a journey from patient to person. And that's really what, we're putting you on this new wonderful journey. Look at it that way. And we're going to pack our backpacks and off we go. Well, we're calling it the 10 steps from patient to person. But what I want to tell you, it's not like a 12-step program. You do not have to do these in any given order. It depends on your needs. Saying that, the first two you really need to do. The first one is accepting the pain, and that is the hardest thing to do. And when I talk to people about accepting the pain, they look at me and they say, do you mean giving up? Absolutely not. That's the last thing I want you to do. I want you to learn how to fight back. But the problem is, remember I said just if I knew what I had. So you keep searching for the answer. And maybe today you say, okay, for today, I know I have this amount of pain. This is the way it is for today. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? But I have to begin, instead of continuing on that relentless search, which not only is physically draining, but emotionally, it just gets the very best of you. I mean, every time they dangle that carrot, you say no more, and then they'll say, well, maybe we'll do this one more test or treatment, and you get all excited again, and then down. So, I mean, not only does your pain go up and down, but your emotions sort of go up and down, your hopes go up and down. For today, accept the fact that you have pain, and say, okay, today I have pain. Who knows what tomorrow's going to bring? Now, what I'm going to do now is show you a video of some of our members and what they say about accepting pain.
Your pain will be a factor in your life, but it will not be who you are. By taking stock of your strengths and limitations and reminding yourself of the things that are important to you, you'll begin to find ways to move forward in spite of your pain.
You will get better. For as impossible as you think this experience is, there is a way through it and beyond it. And I am living proof of that.
Put your faith in someone that you trust, a physician that you know is going to help you through this process, and give it a chance.
Educate yourself on whatever the particular pain is.
I can't think about past today. I live this thing one day at a time.
Don't give up. There is help out there. You're not the only person in the whole world.
Pain is inevitable, but misery is an option.
It's a journey that we do together. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey itself.
You didn't invite pain into your life, and you don't have to let it take over. You can reclaim the life that belongs to you.
I'm a different person now. The old Ruthie is gone. She's dead. I don't think she'll ever come back. But truthfully, I like the new Ruthie better than I did the old Ruthie.
And where I am now is I have more power than I ever had, even though I'm less physically capable than I used to be.
And I don't do all the things that I once did, but I still have that joy. Music is a great joy to me and fills my heart with a lot of happiness.
Helping my daughter plan her wedding and just doing all that fun stuff in showers and actually being at the reception and dancing. That was great. Boy, that was one of the best days of my life.
My life now it's like I'm coming up out of a hole and coming into sunshine, and I feel real good about it.
Every few months, I take a deep breath and I get in the car and I drive to Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I drive to Louisville, Kentucky, or Frostburg, Maryland. I don't know how I do it, but there's grandchildren at the end of the road, and I can do it.
I've been living with pain for a total of 15 years. 4 years of night and 11 years of light.
In their own words, I just love that little piece of video. It's just so inspiring. I mean, these are people who thought there was no hope. And I love Ruthie's comment where she said, you know, the old Ruthie, she's dead, she's gone, but I like the new Ruthie a lot better than I did the old. And what I hear, and it's hard to believe sometimes, but sometimes what I hear from people with pain is that, you know, pain really wasn't, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not that they had pain, because it forced them to re-examine their lives and look at the way where they were going and how they needed, maybe they had strayed off of the path they had planned, but this made them stop and really re-examine their life. So you never know what adventure is waiting around the corner. That's always what I say. Second step is to get involved, and you have to get actively involved. You cannot be that passive patient. You have to be an active participant, especially when it comes to pain management. You know, if you sit there and wait for someone to make you better, it just ain't going to happen. So you really have to be active. And it's very helpful, and I see some spouses are here, to really have the spouse supporting you, or whoever, the significant other, to support you through this effort. And we'll be talking about families a little bit later. So this is what I like to say about people with pain, is that as your pain takes over your life, things that you do, just a little everyday things, start to go by the wayside. You don't have time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the physical ability to do them anymore. So I like to see them like sitting, I say it's like a little pile sitting over here beside you. And every time you put something off or you don't do it, you add it to that little pile over here. And before you know it, you turn around and you look at that little pile of things you should or wanted to do, and it's like this massive mountain sitting right beside you. It's like, what do I do? And there's no way that you can say, okay, I'm going to take care of it. I mean, it's so overwhelming that you do less because you don't know what to do. So you need to understand, how do you set your priorities? That's really important. You need a starting point, right? But how do you get this whole mountain of stuff down into some manageable level so that you can actually figure out what should be your first step? We have an idea, and I brought the little note cards. Hang on. I'll give them to you after, but I always ask people to get those little 3x5 note cards, and I brought some in case you didn't have any as a reminder. And what you do is everything that's in this mountain here that you think you should be doing or want to do, it's not all work, it's things that you really want to do too. Everything there, when you take these little 3x5 index cards, and you need to get probably about 300, I don't have 300 for each of you, probably about 300, you got a big mountain over here, and every time you think about something that's in that mountain of yours, things you want to do, should do, write it down on one of your cards and then just set it somewhere and start stacking them up. So just keep thinking about what's on this mountain, all the things that you should do, wanted to do, identify them, write them down, one on each card, and just save them. And once you think you've got all the stuff on that mountain identified, take all those cards. You're going to have a huge stack. I mean, it's been going on for a long time, so there's a huge stack there. And lay them all out on a big, really big table or on the floor. And just step back and look at them. You were really carrying all of that stuff in here. It wasn't really sitting there. It was all inside of you. It's creating a lot of stress, a lot of sense of self, that you had no worth because you couldn't do, all those things. You're carrying all that around, okay? That's a lot to do on top of your pain. That's hard to carry around. And we do it, unfortunately. We don't have erasers in our brain. I'd like to find one. I haven't found it yet. So it's all there. It's all there. So when you sit down and you look at all this stuff and you just read through all those cards and you ask yourself, at that moment of all the things you've just written down, what's the most important thing for you on all those cards? And pick that up. Now you have a priority. That is your first priority. And you don't have to worry about forgetting about all the rest because it's all there on cards. And then just stack them up in any order you want. Maybe you'll take the next 3 that you might want to work on. And hold on to them. Keep them in your pocket. The rest put away somewhere. You're going to get to them. And you may add cards, some you may throw away at some point. But now you have some sense of what you need to do, what you want to do. And they better not all be things you have to do, work, because it's nice to have some time and have some fun too. You need to be able to mix in recreation with work. Don't ever just do all work because you feel like you have to do it. So now you have your first priority. Now you have a starting point. You have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Because for so many people with pain, why get out of bed in the morning? You're just going to hurt, right? Why should I get out? Well, now you have a reason. You have a priority, something that's important to you. You've identified it. It's not for anyone else. It's for you. So once you get your priority, then you need to begin to set a realistic goal. And one of the problems with people with pain, we continually set ourselves up for failure. What we do is we decide, okay, so let's say our goal, our first priority, we're going to do our goal on that is we need to get, out and about. So our goal is we live 10 blocks away from the ocean, not the ocean, Lake Michigan here. It's Lake Michigan. And you want to walk. You want to walk down to the lakefront, right? Now, say you haven't walked that far in 3 years. You say, okay, I'm going to do it. So you get up, you go out, start walking, right? What happens? You don't quite make it. You got to sit down. You feel like, I knew I couldn't do it. You feel like you failed, right? Well, that's because you tried to do too much. You set yourself up for failure. You didn't narrow it down into small, manageable steps that you may need to take a few steps at a time. So what you do is say, okay, for the first week, my goal is to walk out to the end of the block. Got 1 block down. Do that for a week. You can do it. It's not a problem. Okay? Now you've built up some stamina. Now the second week, you take the second block. It sounds silly for most people, but you know what? For a person with pain, sometimes the tiniest little things become massive obstacles. Most people don't get that, but you get it. You know how hard some of these very simple things are. You can't set yourself up for failure. You have to make your goal something that's within your ability to make happen, not someone else. You can't say, well, I'm going to be a grandmother by the end of the year. I'm sorry, you don't have that ability. It's not up to you. Okay? Make them measurable, something that you can actually measure. You can measure walking that block every week. And then the second block. And maybe the third week you can do 4 blocks instead of just 2. Small steps to build up both your stamina, but more importantly, your ability, your belief in yourself. Because we've lost that. All we ever say, remember I said all we ever look at is our disabilities, what I can't do, I can't. Well, now we got to change that. And I always tell people when they say I can't do it, I say, no, you're choosing not to do it. There's a few things we really can't do, but most things we make a choice, either to do or not to do. And so you really have to start saying, I choose not to do that, not I can't. I choose not to do that. Because that's a real important little, just in your own mind, thinking about who you are and your abilities. You can do it, you just don't want to do it. So you make that choice. So one of the things, when I used to do groups a long time ago, we always filled out I had them fill out a goal evaluation form that's in that patient-to-person book. Don't look at it now. And so we did that every week. And there was this one lady who had diabetic neuropathy, which means both her feet and her hands were like numb. And she just couldn't do a lot of things that she used to do. Like the lady back there sitting there knitting. There was no way she could do anything like that because she just didn't have the ability in her hands. So very small tasks became huge for her. But one of the things that she really got a lot of pleasure out of was baking for her family. And she made really good cookies. And she hasn't been able to do that in several years. And that's something she really, really wanted to do. And so what she did is she talked to the group about what she wanted to do. And so we always set a monthly goal onto what we can get done in a month. So she talked to the group about it, and they said, you know what? We're going to help you with this. Let's start to ask, how can we help you step by step every week to do this? Now, for most people, having a goal to make 1 batch of cookies for a whole month, that's kind of pathetic, right? I mean, you can do that in a couple hours. But for someone with pain who had to let this go a long time ago, that was huge. It was massive. So they talked to her about it. Then they asked, they talked to her about maybe freezing the dough when she got it to a certain point. And so every week she'd come in and tell us what she did. At the end of that month, she actually baked those cookies by herself with no help at all. And she brought him into us too. And so we made out. And you would have thought the entire group had just accomplished the hardest Olympic task in the world. They all felt so good because not only did she accomplish her goal, but they helped her do that just by supporting her, not saying, "Oh, that's a wimpy thing. Anyone can make cookies." It was huge. And so that's how you have to begin to look at this. We're not the same people that we used to be. Like the one woman said, I'm not as physically capable as I used to be, but I still am stronger than I ever was. There's different kinds of strengths we have to rediscover. And so setting goals are really important. It gives you a starting point, and it's something that you can measure to see. It's sort of like, when you think, I've had pain for 5 years. Somebody said they've had pain for 5 years. And I had pain 5 years ago, and I still have pain today. I'm no better, right? Because every day you have pain, you think it's the same. But we don't really know that. Maybe it changed, and we didn't see it because it's a very slow thing. And I like to equate that with like standing in front of the mirror. How long would it take you to stand there to watch your hair grow so you could see it? You don't, do you? You don't see your hair grow. And yet, we know it grows. You have to get it cut. That's how you measure that. Unless you measure your success with those goals, you're really not going to know that you did it. That's why it's so important to know that you've made progress. You need that. And a support group will help you to do that. We'll talk about those later. So setting goals are really important. You need to be able to do that. The next one is knowing your basic rights. And when we get new facilitators and they'll say, where should I start? Get this whole workbook. And the workbook's not meant to be gone chapter by chapter, page by page either. It depends on people's needs. But I always say, start on these. If you don't know where to start on your basic rights. That's what empowers people. I love the basic rights. And I will flick the screen, and there they all are. No one ever told me I had any rights at all. I didn't know that. I had no idea that I had the right to be treated with dignity and respect. I had no idea that it was okay to ask for help. To me, ask for help, that's a sign of weakness, right? No, it's not. Because we can't do everything ourselves. No one is perfect that can do absolutely everything. Try to move a piano by yourself. That ain't going to happen. Even on wheels, it won't happen. You need help. Everybody needs help from time to time. And again, I know in the vets, in the military, you guys really do watch each other's back. And they don't ask for the help, but you do it anyway. And they do it because they're willing to. And I bet they would be also willing to help you if you only ask. Unless you make your needs known, they're never going to be met. We can't read someone else's mind. So you have the right to make your needs known. You have to know. You have to tell people what you need and if you need help. People can't read our minds. They don't know. We have to make our needs known. We also have the right to stop and think before we respond. In other words, when someone asks you something, is that pressure? Yes or no? What is it? Give me a minute to think about it. It's okay. You have that right. You don't have to make a split decision, especially when it comes to your medical care. You can think about it. You can ask, give me some literature on it. Let me take it home, look at it. I'll think about it, and I will call you with my decision. You're allowed to do that. And if by chance you say, because you felt pressure, and you go, okay, I'll do that. And you go home and you start thinking about it, and you go, I'm not sure that was the right decision for me. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to change your mind. No one ever told me that one either. Because I'm always sure, I'll do that. And then I think about it and I go, why did I do that? Why did I say yes? I always do that. You have the right to change your mind. And one of your other rights is you don't have to justify your behavior. You don't have to explain everything that you do and why you do it. So the next time somebody asks you, your wife, your husband says, we're going to go to my mother's for dinner. And you can just say no. And you don't have to explain why. You said no. So if you don't feel well, or if you hate her, doesn't matter. They don't know. You just say no, and you don't have to justify your answer. You're allowed to say no. And I never knew that. I always thought if I said no, I had to explain why. I always like to explain myself. And I still do it, even though I know that right, and I try to catch myself, that I don't have to explain everything. You know, like when you take something back to a store, you say, I want to return this. I never do that. I always have to explain why, what I did, why I take it back, and the poor clerk could care less. But I feel compelled to explain, and I don't have to do it. Sometimes, and sometimes I really remember, I'd like to return this. And then it's like, I can't say anything. I have to bite my tongue here. I don't have to justify my behavior. You have the right to make mistakes. I love that one. No one ever told me that. That's what I built this whole organization on, was my mistakes. I learned from my mistakes. As long as you learn from them, that's okay. But you have the right to make mistakes. No one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. And I watch, especially my grandchildren, and I watch them, and I watch the way they respond to those kinds of things, that they made a mistake. And they sort of chuckle and go, oops. I would be explaining and asking, all this stuff. I don't have to. I can make mistakes. It's okay. And the one I like the best is you have the right to do less than humanly possible. You don't have to drive yourself crazy. You don't have to keep pushing. You have to learn to listen to your body. Remember I said the pain goes up and goes down and up and down? What do you do on those good days? Everything. Everything you can, because of the guilt you feel because you haven't done what you should be doing. You're not carrying your weight, right? On those good days, how often did you just go out and really enjoy the day? Never. And what happens after you push yourself beyond your limits on that good day? The next day is not so good. Right. Well, yeah. And the day, and the day, and the day. And so what are you doing? You're your own worst enemy. You're setting yourself up for failure every time. You're not being realistic. You're not obviously enforcing your basic right to do less than humanly possible. And you're not listening to your body. Because the first time it says, ouch, what do? I can handle this. I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to push just a little bit more. And then it goes, ouch, ouch. And you go, I can do more. I only have 10 more cords of wood to split, or, I can do that, right? I used to do that all the time with one arm tied behind my back when I was young. Well, guess what? We're not so young anymore. But you don't listen to your body, and it's telling you to stop. And what's really amazing is if you maybe stop for 5 minutes, you might be able to start up again. It's called pacing. Pacing is so important in managing pain. You have to pace yourself. Maybe you have to take a half hour in between. But you have the right to do less than humanly possible. So maybe on one of those good days, you're going to go out and enjoy the day. Like I said, I was amazed. Your city is beautiful. There is so much to do. I mean, just to walk around is just amazing. Enjoy it. You don't have to be productive I always thought I did. Because you know what we do? We always base our self-esteem on how much we accomplish in a day, right? That's the one thing the pain took away from you. Because you can't be like you used to be. And so our self-esteem goes right down the tubes with it. But, it's okay to do less than humanly possible and enjoy the day, because you know what? You might have a better day the next day too. And even the day after that. But if you don't listen to your body, it knows best. And if it says, ouch, just stop for a little bit. It's okay. I can't impress that upon you enough. And if you overstep your limits, then you've made the mistake. You have a right to make mistakes, but learn from those mistakes. Go, okay, I know what I did. Now there's a few spouses in here, so you're also hearing this. So remind them. You didn't listen to your body, did you? That first ouch. These are so important. Print them out. They're on our webpage. They're in your book with a lot more detail. Print them out. Stick them on your refrigerator. Look at them every day. These are your rights. They're the same as anyone else. You all have the same right to enjoy your life. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to explain yourself. You can ask for help. You're equal to anyone else. You're just as important. Recognize emotions. And this is a really hard one. Because then we think, okay, I should be able to control my emotions, right? The one thing that you have to remember is there are no wrong feelings. You can feel anything you want. You can control your actions. You can't control your feelings. It's just going to happen. You're always going to react. That's what makes you human. So there are no wrong feelings. I like to use this little picture. It's that the guy sitting there in the blue sweater, he's the one with the pain. And he's what's he doing? Sort of pulling at himself, closing up. He's not going to say anything, right? Not what we do. We sort of shut ourselves away from everyone. We're not going to talk about it. They don't want to hear it anymore anyway. And it can't be hurting anyone if I just sit here and be quiet and suffer in silence. Look at her. She's not so happy. Don't you think that may be affecting her a little bit? Don't you think she knows what's going on? She's seen this behavior before. We're so afraid of negative feelings. We never hide our joy. Never. Negative feelings, that's another whole story. And so they say, well, maybe you're depressed. Well, like I said, if you've had the flu for a whole year, who would be a happy camper? Of course you're depressed. You have pain. It's taken over your life. It's taken over all of that future plans you wanted, but that doesn't mean it's the end. It's just a different beginning and a different road you're going to travel. When I went to the pain program, and again, remember, I went there to fail. And one of the first things they did, and I was just so irritated I was even there, but one of the first things that they did was gave me a book to read. It was called The Angry Book. And I'm thinking, all right, what is this? I'm here because I have pain, and you're giving me this book on anger. And I'm not an angry person. But they said, you have to read it. And I did what I was told. I always did what I was told. So I read the book. It's not a very big book. It's still in publication today. And that was 32 years ago. It's called The Angry Book by Dr. Theodore Rubin. Wonderful book. Little page, doesn't take much to read it. And in every page, every chapter was a different kind of anger. So anger is not just yelling and screaming. There's silence. There's all kinds of anger. And I don't even remember all the anger, the way different kind of angers that there are. But what I do remember, and what I took away from the book, because by the time I got done reading the book, I thought, I'm the angriest person in the world. I saw myself in every one of those chapters. Every one of those. Don't worry about me. Go ahead and enjoy yourself. It's like, if you dare go out that door, I'll be really angry. But go ahead and go. I'm not going to say anything, right? That is a kind of anger. And I saw myself in every chapter, every kind. And at the end of the book, he talked about a slush fund. And that's really what I remember and took away from that book. And the slush fund is all of those negative feelings that we tend to hide and avoid and ignore and won't admit to. That's where they stay. Sort of like all that mountain over here that you're carrying around. Well, you have a slush fund inside of you too. And I like to look at that slush fund like a bucket. It's an empty bucket. And every time you ignore one of your negative feelings, another drop of water goes in your bucket. Now, there's a lot of feelings that are being ignored, the negative, and they just keep dropping more drops in that bucket every day. And you're carrying this around. It's getting pretty heavy. All of a sudden, there's that last little thing, that last drop. And what happens? Bucket overflows. You dump your bucket on somebody. It's always your safe person. For me, it's my husband. I dump buckets on him all the time, unfortunately. I still try to recognize emotions, but we're all human and we make mistakes. So I sometimes hold those negative feelings in, and then I just dump them all on him when he says the smallest little thing. But he's my safe person. In spite of that, he knows exactly. He knows me too well, and he's listened to these talks too many times, so he really does get it. But you have to begin to realize you're carrying, even though you're saying it's not bothering me, you're carrying them all around. You got a whole bucket full of water drops in there, and you're carrying it around day after day after day. Imagine how hard that is with a person who is 100% physically well. And here you are with pain, and you're dragging this bucket, and you got this mountain on this shoulder. There are no wrong feelings, only inappropriate reactions. So, say somebody does something and it bothers you. What are you going to do? Say, that's fine. You're going to say, you know what you just said really hurt my feelings. Tell them. And it's no big deal. And it's not yelling and screaming. Or, when you did that, it really hurt. I would prefer that you do. And in the books that you have, we have a bunch of assertiveness training. And I'm not going to talk about that today. But it's going to give you different ways to express how you're feeling in an appropriate way. Read the chapter, do the exercises. It really does help you better communicate. Communication is what brings everything together. But if we continually hold those negative feelings in, we're going to explode at some point in time. And people know. Look at her. You think you're not hurting anyone, but you really are. You're shutting them out. Learn to relax. That's easy to say, right? If I could go to that wonderful, beautiful little island there and feel that soft, warm sand, lay down on a nice blanket, you can feel that little sand, your body sort of contours with the sand, and you pick the sand up and it's like silk going through your fingers, and the waves are breaking against the shore. You can hear the palm trees rustling overhead. If you could sit like that, then you might be able to relax, right? But that's not reality. That is not reality. So how do you relax? Remember I said a while ago, the more attention you give your pain, the more you're going to suffer. And one of our goals is to reduce our sense of suffering. So right now, I want all of you to do something for me. To yourself, in your mind, I want you to count from 1 to 25. And at exactly the same moment, say your alphabet. Can't do it, can you? You know why? You have a one-track mind. You have a one-track mind. So, while you're thinking about laying on that beautiful, warm, sunny beach, listening to the waves crashing against the shores, for that instant, you're not thinking, oh my God, my back is killing me. So for that instant, you have reduced your sense of suffering. Didn't mean the pain went away, but you're not suffering because you're not giving it your undivided attention. So now the question is, how do you do that? How do you redirect your thoughts onto something else? And I don't know if they do biofeedback here or not, but when I went to the pain program, that was another one of the things that they had me do, right? And so I had 4 sessions, and I went into these sessions, and the whole idea is to turn the whole sound off and, get your hands nice and warm. Well, I was terrible. I couldn't do them. The sound went up. I tried so hard that I stressed myself out. Didn't work. I was really, really fortunate that the gentleman who was doing it, the biofeedback person, taped those sessions, because as I was hooked up, he was reading these wonderful little relaxation exercises. And he taped them, and he said, now when you go home, practice them. Remember I said I used to do what I was told. I still try to, but not all the time. And so I listened to them twice a day. I practiced them. They were about 20 minutes each. And I kept practicing and practicing. And one day I realized I didn't need those tapes anymore, because I could tell my body how it is I wanted it to feel. Because I listened to my body. Remember we talked about listening to what your body's telling you? And when I felt that first little ouch, and there's a bunch of different kinds of relaxation exercises. My favorite one for me is the breath relaxation. So I always think about, when I just get that little oomph, or if I'm on a plane and it goes, a little. So I will take in a deep breath, and I imagine how that breath looks as it begins to fill my lungs. Is it a color? Is it a substance? And then as you exhale, has it changed consistency? Has it changed color? Is it something altogether different? Just taking in that deep breath and letting it out and thinking about that. Or another way that they did that with the tape was, as you breathe out, instead of breathing out of your mouth, imagine the breath going down your shoulder, down your arm, and out your fingertips. You just imagine that. And again, while you're thinking about that, you only have a one-track mind. You can't think about, oh my God, this is hurting me. So if you listen to your body and you begin to learn how to do these, you might be able to regain some control, not only of what you're doing, but your body as well, and begin to take more control. And I personally love control. So, I would think that most of you do like control. We like to be in control. And you really can tell your body how you want it to feel. But it takes a lot of practice. It's not something you're just going to try once and go, this doesn't work. Don't do that. Keep working at it and working at it. We have, I think, 4 different exercises available, but you can get them from all kinds of different places. The Barnes & Noble have a bunch of tapes. There's probably some online. You don't have to use ours, but they're very effective, but you have to practice. And practice and practice. It's just like, we're learning to ride a bike. You don't just jump on a bike and off you go. You're going to fall down and skin your knees. Don't get disappointed. Don't get discouraged. You can do it. Now what I'm going to do for you, and this is something that's also on our webpage, I'm going to play a 5-minute relaxation for you. Okay? So if you want to lie down, if you want to kick off your shoes, you have great chairs. I mean, these chairs are really nice. Get as comfortable as you can, and we're going to play this 5-minute relaxation for you, and just listen and hear what it has to say. If you want to get up and stretch for a minute and then get comfortable, I'll give you a minute till you get all settled. Close your eyes gently. Settle down comfortably. Begin by breathing out first. Then breathe in easily, just as much as you need. Now, breathe out slowly with a slight sigh. And as you breathe out, feel the tension begin to drain away. Then go back to your ordinary breathing. Even, quiet, and steady. Now, direct your thoughts to each part of your body, to your muscles and joints. Think first about your left foot. Your toes are relaxed and still. Your foot is resting easily on the floor. Now your right foot, toes, ankles. Now, think about your legs. Your thighs roll outward when they are relaxed, so let them go. Your back muscles will relax when you hold yourself upright and your spine is supported by the back of the chair. Let your abdominal muscles become soft and relaxed. There is no need to hold your tummy in tightly. It rises and falls as you breathe quietly. Think about the fingers on your left hand. They are curved, limp, quiet, and still. Now the fingers on your right hand. Relaxed, soft, and still. This feeling of relaxation spreads up your arms to your shoulders. Let your shoulders relax. Let them drop easily Your neck muscles are relaxed if your head is held upright, resting easily balanced on the top of your spine. Let your face relax. Let the expression come off it. Make sure that your teeth are not held tightly together, and let your jaw rest in its relaxed position. Your cheeks are soft because there is no need to keep up an expression. Your lips are soft and hardly touching. Relax your forehead so it feels a little wider and a little higher than before. Now, instead of thinking of yourself in parts, become aware of the all-over sensation of letting go, of quiet and rest. When your muscles are relaxed, you begin to feel peaceful, rested, and quiet. Stay like this, listening to your breathing for a moment. Now, wiggle your hands and legs a little, and open your eyes and sit quietly for a moment. Telling your body how you want it to feel, paying attention to it. You know, just even in how you hold your hand, whether you're making that tight fist, and I mean, all that muscle tension is only going to increase your pain level. So begin to learn how to tell your body how you want it to feel. The next step is exercise. And this is a hard one to do because most people, and for me even, you know, they kept saying, you know, if it hurts, don't do it. And every time I do something and tell the doctor it made it worse, he said, well, then don't do it anymore. Well, you can imagine after 6 years where I was at. I was so conditioned that it didn't matter what I did, it was going to hurt. Because I became deconditioned. I didn't do anything. And so when I went to the pain program and they said, oh, you got to start doing exercises, I'm thinking, and weightlifting on top of that. I mean, remember, I couldn't hardly hold a cup of coffee, and they wanted me to lift weights. And I was at the Cleveland Clinic, and unfortunately, the Cleveland Browns worked out there too. So there's this wimpy lady trying to lift a 5-pound weight, and they're pressing 300-400 pounds, and I'm thinking, only intensified my inability to do what I wanted to do. So, but the problem is that we tend to, remember, we don't listen to our body. We don't hear what it's telling us. Now, in the workbook that you have, we have a section on exercise, and there's 18 very mild stretches in there that we don't tell you to do. They're there so that you can take them, to your healthcare provider and say, okay, what of these can I do? What do you think is okay for me to do? And so maybe they'll say they're all okay, or 4 are okay, or 3 are okay. So then what I want you to do is pick out one that you think you want to do. And so for the heck of it, we're just going to say a leg lift. So in the morning, before you get out of bed, what you need to do in starting an exercise program, that has to be a regular schedule, right? That's the only way you're going to do it, is to work it into your daily schedule. First day, before you get out of bed, before you get dressed, lift your leg as high as you can. Just as high as you can. Don't feel any pain. Put it down. That's it. You've done your exercise for that day. You've worked within your limits. You haven't set yourself up for failure. You're not pushing beyond your limits. You can do it, right? The next morning, do the same thing. And maybe, excuse me, maybe by the end of the week, you'll actually get your leg up pretty high and it won't hurt at all. The next week, you add another exercise. And very slowly and gradually, pacing yourself, you'll find yourself doing a lot more exercise and it didn't hurt. And you can't wake up the next morning and go, I can't believe I did all that and I'm really hurting. Because you've stayed within your limits. You haven't set yourself up for failure and you've accomplished your goal. A lot of people use exercise as their personal goal. But you have to do it gradually. You are so deconditioned. Every day you spend in bed, every 24 hours you stay in bed, you know how long it takes you to get back to where you were before that first 24 hours? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So imagine how deconditioned some of you may be. I know I was up and around, but I really wasn't doing anything. And no matter what I did, hurt. So they taught me, for me, at the pain program, it got a lot worse before it got better. And I always tell people when they go through a pain program, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But I wanted to prove that this wasn't going to help, so I really pushed, which wasn't the smartest thing to do. But it was really interesting because there was one day, and I don't know if I guess the VA is probably like this, but the Cleveland Clinic is like over 3 or 4 blocks long. And so we had to walk. You weren't a patient, never even allowed to talk about your pain. And so we had to get up every morning, get dressed, make our bed, walk down to breakfast, walk down to lunch, and we walked everywhere. We were just like regular people walking around the hospital. And physical therapy was like 2 buildings over, so it was like a block and a half away. And so I remember walking one day over to physical therapy where we did stretching exercises. It wasn't passive therapy. I was an active participant. And I thought, I just can't do this today. I'm really hurting. What was amazing to me is on the way back from exercise that day, from PT, I actually felt better. And this little light bulb went off and went, oh, maybe this is a good thing. And to this day, I still do those stretching exercises. It's a small price for me to pay to be able to function. It's one of the many things I do. Only one of the many. So talk to your healthcare provider. We cannot make a physical evaluation and tell you what you can and can't do. That's not for us to tell you. What we can do is once you get an okay and your healthcare professional tells you what you can do, to encourage you to continue to do it. This is something that only you can do. No one else can exercise for you. No one else can tell you how your body should feel. No one else can hear what your body's telling you. These are all your responsibilities. That's why you have to be that active participant. The total picture. Remember I talked about, it's not about what you can't do anymore. It's about what you can do. You really have to step back and take a look. What has the pain done to my life? And how am I going to regain control? When I talk to people with pain, what they tell me is I want my life back. That's what they always say. I want my life back the way it was before. And like I said, many of us are a lot older than we were when the pain started. So we're never going to go back to being 20 or 30. That's something you really can't do. Not yet anyway. Who knows? But what can you do? You really have to look at the overall, evaluate what is it you want? How are you going to get there? And how are you going to stay within your limits? Look at the whole picture. Look at your abilities, not at your disabilities. Ask yourself, what did I always want to do and I never did? And it may be, painting. It may be anything. Maybe it be some woodworking or some whittling or whatever. Ask yourself, what is it that you might want to do now that you never could before? You have some time. Do it. Your attitude is 80, if not 90% of how well you will do. And it really is up to you. You need the support, you need the direction from healthcare professionals, you need the support of your peers, your family, but in the end, most of it lays on your plate. It's up to you. And the last one is outreach, and that's really where I started. Of course, if there were a group available to me before I went to the clinic, I would not have gone, because I'm also very stubborn. And I had given up by then. So I know I would not have done it. I'm amazed at every person that walks into a group room because I think that really took a lot of courage. But you have to really begin to, one of the things, there were several things I learned at the clinic. The first one was, for the very first time in my life, I realized I wasn't the only person in the world with pain. Before that, I never knew anyone else had pain because I had become so isolated. I had no idea. So I knew there were other people out there that I needed to tell, hey, it's not hopeless. There's hope. But I think the main reason that I did this is we were driving home from Cleveland I lived in Pittsburgh, remember the Steelers? I lived in Pittsburgh at the time. And my husband, we were driving home, and I thought to myself, in that controlled environment, it was an inpatient program, which is unheard of today. In that controlled environment, everything worked okay. I could do it. But what's going to happen when I go home? I have to start taking care of the kids again in the house and do all the things I have to do. And it was like 10 days before Christmas. What's going to happen if this doesn't work? I mean, other things had worked for a little bit, and then they stopped working. So what happens? So I think more than anything, it was out of fear that I would go backwards, that I knew I had to stay actively involved and continue to apply all those things I had learned at the clinic to my daily life moving forward. If I wanted to remain that person rather than a patient, that's what I had to do. And what better way to do it than to share what I had learned with other people? And as I said, 31 years ago, I was at the very beginning of my journey, and I have learned so much as I go along that road, along that path. There's always something new to learn. It is amazing. And that's why the groups are so valuable, because not only do you learn from them, but people can share what they know, to reach out to others, to know that you are not alone. You are not alone. There are a lot of other people out there who get it. You're not crazy. Your pain is real, and there's a way to begin to manage it. And this is our little car, and I don't know if you saw Jill bringing in the box, and I was smiling because we sent them, and you're all going to get one of these, but I will explain to you why we have this little car. This is how I like to explain a person with pain. They're like a car, except your car has 4 flat tires, so you can't go anywhere. You're stuck. Remember I talked about our expectation? Our expectation is all I need is that one pill, and that's all I need, right? Even if it is the right pill, it's only going to put air in one of your tires. You still have 3 flat tires. You're not going anywhere. You have to ask yourself, what else do I need? What do I need to fill up those other 3 tires? It could be counseling, it could be physical therapy, it could be acupuncture. Who knows? Everyone is different. And so maybe, that medication that you got or even the physical therapy gave you 20% relief. Well, add 20 times 4, you got 80%. That's pretty good. But you got to fill up the rest of the tires. And once you get all your tires filled, guess what? You have to maintain that car on a day-to-day basis. You can't go back every day and say, okay, what am I to do now? What am I to? It's your job. You don't take your new car back to the dealer and say, fill her up or wash my windshield or check my oil or whatever else you do to cars. That's your job. If something goes wrong with your car, makes a funny noise or whatever, what do? You take it back. You go back to see your healthcare provider. But on a day-to-day, it's your job to figure out what you need to fill up those tires, working with your healthcare provider, with hopefully your ACPA group, and then maintain it on a day-to-day basis. And the nice thing about the VA is if it breaks down and you need a tow, you've got a whole bunch of people who are willing to help you because you guys watch each other's back.